Oh no. All right. Hello, everybody. Welcome back to another daily space roundup. Uh, Basically, the point of the show is to cover all the latest and greatest news in the space industry, and also go over some of the photos we got from Starbase. So, yeah, I'm your host today. I'm Nathan. I'm a writer and researcher for What About It, as well as and I'm also studying aerospace engineering. So I do have a bit of background in this, other than just researching a lot of this. And yeah, we're basically just going to be going over a bunch of stuff that's happening at Starbase right now. And the first thing we're going to be going over, I kind of touched on this yesterday a little bit as well. There is no more tank farm. This I kind of want to bring it up one more time, just because we didn't have proper pictures last time because our photographer, uh, it was his weekend essentially, so we didn't have proper pictures of the tank farm completely gone. We still had a tank in the way, but just now we got some of the awesome pictures that we can now get with no tank farm in between us and the launch mount, and you can see it's just a clear view, and you can tell the camera's already, like, fairly low down, and you can see almost everything. From this angle, the tank farm would have been obstructing up to about here previously with all 8 tanks. Of course, with only the 1, it would have been over here. It wouldn't have been too much of a problem for this angle, but now we can get much better views, and you'll actually see some of those views as we're going through the pictures, because we can get some incredibly clear views and some angles that we have not gotten of the launch tower basically ever, because the tank farm was in the way. So it's really awesome to see. And yeah, so this is basically all that's left of the tank farm right now. They have the base structure still there for the most part. They're still ripping that down, and they're going to replace it with some of the bullet tanks that are prefabricated and just bought from elsewhere. Uh, originally, originally Musk had stated that he didn't really want to buy these prefabricated tanks because they're expensive, and like he can just build them himself. But yeah, clearly that was not the best option. Um, there's there's not really too much sugarcoating it. It was not the best idea, especially having it that close to the launch pad. And after IFT-1, it looked like a shotgun shell had gone through it. It was not a good time for those cans at all, and it was it's really nice to see them gone. And this is all that's left of them. Pretty soon they'll just be a distant memory with with the horizontal tanks completely replacing them. And we have seen the expansion off in the other direction of the horizontal tanks. So they might not even need to expand the horizontal tanks this way, and they might just end up putting infrastructure here. For example, they might put recondensers in this area, and those are basically actually I'm pretty sure I have a picture of those. Hmm. Yeah, I guess I'll just explain them. I do think there is a picture here, so I'll probably explain those a bit more if we get to that picture. But essentially, the point is you'll run uh, gaseous methane or oxygen that has evaporated from the tanks because they heated up, and instead of just dumping it overboard, you'll run it through recondensers, which will cool it back down and allow you to keep it as opposed to just dumping it overboard because it's expanding too quickly. Because if you keep it in there, you're going to pop. Because whenever a liquid such as oxygen or methane convert uh, turns back into a gas, it expands about 300 times. So if you don't have the right equipment for that, you're going to pop. And that's not a fun time. Yeah. There's very little left. They've already taken out the outer shell from this area, and they're just going to start demolishing everything, which is it's going to be so nice to see it go. But you can kind of see as well, like this is a view we haven't really had from the launch tower before, and you can see like we're getting some really clear views of the launch arms. We wouldn't have really been able to get these views before, and now it opens up so much more opportunities for us and for our photographers to bring even more news because we can see what's actually going on. That is opposed. Oh, sorry. I just realized my light was on. Probably a little hard to see me. There we go. That should be better now. Sorry about that. Um, but yeah, it's going to open up a lot more opportunities for us to really find out what's going on, which is really nice, especially as the build site is almost getting less of that with more and more structures being built, which is good for a build site because they'll be able to produce more rockets and boosters. So it's nice because we'll be getting to see more launches, but it is unfortunate that we won't be able to track those quite as well. For example, we don't really know the status of Booster 12, although we do know that there is going to be something going on, and I'll mention that later. But essentially, we don't really know too much about what's going on at the build site. But now, at least in this regard, we're getting more information, which is really nice. Oh, I need to zoom out before moving over, I guess. Yeah. So you can see there is nothing left. The crane that was attached to the top of the final barrel section is just sitting off to the side now. Nothing attached. It's all been chopped up and hauled away. So it's all just junk now. Yay. And now over to the launch mount. You can see they've put the scaffolding back up for the booster 14.1 slap testing that they conducted. They did take the scaffolding off, so it's likely back now just for some smaller repairs. Hopefully, there's nothing big they still need to do. Of course, they didn't really need the launch mount fully repaired for booster 14.1. They just really needed to hold it down. So we know at the very least the um, booster clamps that hold the booster down during static fires or whenever the engines are getting up to full power, those are at least working because they were able to hold booster 14.1 down as it was getting slapped by giant metal arms. But you can see scaffolding back here, a bit of scaffolding around the Mechazilla arms, probably just to check over everything there. And yeah, just some general work being done around the launch mount. Hopefully, not too much work because we want as little refurbishment needs on the launch mount as possible between flights. We want it to be fully reusable, not just refurbishable. Because if you have a reusable rocket, but only a refurbishable launch pad, then, well, it's going to slow things down a lot. And I mean, at that point, is it really worth it? Because you want everything to be reusable, rapidly reusable. So hopefully, this is only temporary, and they find solutions to where they don't have to do this anymore. And yeah, on that note, you can see here that more work is being done on the ship quick disconnect. Now, after flight 4, we had mentioned that they needed to do some work on the ship quick disconnect because an actuator had broken, and essentially the entire ship quick disconnect was like leaning off to the side. It did not it it was broken essentially, and they needed to repair it. In this case, they were repairing one of some of the liquid oxygen lines. So it does, from what we could see, this might have been due to a lost engine or maybe a change in the planned trajectory of whenever the booster launches by SpaceX. But it did look like the ship quick disconnect got a little more cooked this time than on at least the previous two flights. It could, it might not have gotten cooked like as much as we might be, or as much more, but it was to a significant enough amount to where they are having to repair some of the lines, and you can see a lot more damage, especially around the insulation. After flight 3, there wasn't much damage to the insulation actually on the ship quick disconnect, but for this one, you can see quite a bit of damage. It basically looks like they had to duct tape everything, and they we figured they might need to replace some of the lines, and sure enough, they attached the crane up to it, and they are in fact either repairing or replacing some of the lines that were damaged during the flight. Um, yeah, and here's some of the workers doing that. Yeah. It is it's a beautiful view without the tank farm. It's uh so happy they're gone. I can't wait to watch flight 5 and watch the booster landing from that angle. Essentially, it's going to be something amazing. And yeah, if you're interested in watching that with us, we'll be streaming it live here, of course. So if you haven't already, be sure to subscribe. And if you haven't as well, you should join the team and click the like button. Join everybody that has already. If you have, thank you. Also, if you want these photos the moment they come out. So right now, the photos I'm showing you were actually taken yesterday. And if you want those essentially the moment they come out, as soon as the team gets them, you'll get them too. Be sure to sign up to our Patreon or become a channel member, and you'll get access to those the moment they come out. There is also a flyover that we're planning today, so if you're interested in seeing those photos whenever they come out, be sure to do that because those are going to be pretty cool. And there's a lot of interesting things that happened, and hopefully, a lot of interesting things we'll be able to see. Now, moving over to Tower 2, it looks like they've finally completed the concrete pouring, but whenever you're pouring concrete, it's a little sloshy, so you want to be a little bit more precise. So you can see oh, they're kind of just hammering stuff out because they need to make some room and essentially clean up anything that wasn't properly done. They're also performing like final prep work before the tower sections are rolled there, which should be happening not too long from now. They do still have a bit of work that needs to be done on the tower base, including some welding. So you can see these tarps and stuff around the tower base. Essentially, those are to keep welds cleaner because a clean weld is a good weld, and they'll put up those tarps to make sure everything works well, to keep wind out, to keep dust out, because you want low wind when you're welding, because part of the job of welding is essentially making sure there isn't much oxygen around the weld, because that will make it rust immediately, because having hot iron, or essentially hot any welding material that can oxidize, exposed to a lot of oxygen, is going to essentially make it immediately rust or corrode, which is not a good thing, and can weaken your weld. So a lot of times not a lot of times, basically for any weld, you'll want to put some kind of protective gas. And if there's heavy wind blowing, which at Starbase there often is, you want to make sure that that wind is staying out of where you're welding. So that's kind of why these tarps are up. Yeah. So you can see here, I mentioned there's still a bit of work to be done on the tower base. So these are likely going to go, these are part of the tower base that are likely going to go around. It's hard to tell which side of the tower this is on, but essentially they'll be facing, because if you have the launch, actually, let me see if I can see it on this picture. Yeah. So essentially the launch uh, tower base is going to be facing diagonally towards the tower. So actually, let me go over to tower one. If I can get a good picture of tower one. Yeah. So you can see here, you have the launch tower, and here's the base. There are also essentially flame deflectors or like flame walls essentially that protect all the sensitive material behind the tower because there is still equipment behind the tower, not just inside the tower. So you want to have those walls essentially guarding that. And that's likely what these sections are for. And you can see they're hollow. This is actually a really good example of how this tower section was built. So for the previous tower section, essentially it was all concrete with very little like metal reinforcement. And then after some static fires and stuff, they realized we or they might have done it fairly early on, but essentially they just decided to slap steel on the side to protect the concrete. This For this one, they realized that steel is probably the main thing they're going to want to build with. So essentially, they built the whole structure out of steel. Then but it's hollow steel, so they filled it with concrete. So this entire structure is basically just steel filled with concrete, which is pretty interesting. And you can see here really clearly, actually, essentially how this entire structure is built it, with it being extremely hollow. At least, well, it was extremely hollow. Now it's all filled with concrete. So, yeah. Very good pictures from our photographer, by the way. Thank you, John. You are a great photographer. And yeah, you can see here the tower base does have some holes in the bottom. This is mainly so they can run like piping work and the drawworks that runs the Mechazilla arms. That's so they can run all that through it because if you have everything walled off, then you can't really run anything through it and you have a problem there. So yeah, they keep those holes there, and that side isn't facing the flamey end, so they'll be able to keep everything safe on this side. Also, if you have any questions, be sure to send those in the chat. We'll be sure to answer them at the end, or if we get a chance before that as well. So be sure to do that. And also, once again, if you haven't already, be sure to like the stream so other people can find it who are interested in space. And also, whenever you like the stream, it basically tells the YouTube algorithm, hey, I like space content and I want to see more. So like the stream and tell YouTube what your preference is, and you'll start getting even more interesting space content, not just from us, but from other people around the space community as well. So be sure to do that. And also, if you haven't already, be sure to subscribe to the channel because we're starting to do the daily space updates. We have our twice weekly episodes. Speaking of which, one of those came out this morning. I thought it was a really amazing episode. Not biased at all. It's not like, I'm part of the team. So, but, I thought it was really good. And if you want to see basically all the latest things that are happening at Starbase, be sure to subscribe to the channel. All right. So, speaking of Tower 2, moving over to the build site now, we can see the sections for Tower 2. So, teams have essentially been continuing work on the internal piping for Tower 2. For Tower 1, essentially all of this pipe work and all of the actual construction of Tower 2 was done after the tower was stacked. But SpaceX kind of realized it might be easier to do all of that when they're not 400 feet in the air. Um, which is fair. So now SpaceX is essentially building all the tower sections on the ground, just prefabricating them. So the moment that tower base is done, this tower is going to fly up with all these sections done. Of course, we are still a little confused about the final height of the tower because we've seen some things pointing to it being taller. For example, we know that the final height for the new crane is going to be about 100 feet taller than the current stated height of Tower 2, which seems a little excessive to some of us. And that could imply that Tower 2 is going to be even taller than they already said. But that's just the crane height. We haven't seen any documentation. There was some confusion going around because there was a document that looked like it was stating the tower was going to be around 500 feet. Um, I'm trying to remember what that is in meters. Sorry, I'm American. I I'm not very good with metric or converting. 500 feet. I'm talking to somebody on the back end, by the way. Yeah, so I'm pretty sure it's like 100 plus, like probably like I'm pretty sure if I remember correctly, 3 feet is roughly 1 meter, so it should be about like 200 feet roughly, a little under. Yeah, sorry, 200 meters, like 180 to 200 meters, um, which is taller than the previous tower, which was maybe 150 meters, or 400 feet. So that's the possibility. Of course, we don't see enough tower sections to make it that height. So it is possible that SpaceX might start building more tower sections. We've seen tower feet that they could use around the Sanchez site, but those have been there for a little bit, and SpaceX hasn't done anything yet. They might have been waiting for approval, but I mean, SpaceX isn't known to wait for approval half the time, so that's unlikely. So it's really just kind of a bit of a mystery in the community of, is it going to be taller because Musk said it was going to be taller, or did he misspeak? On the documentation, it does say that it's going to be roughly a meter or so taller, but like that's clearly not what he meant. He said this tower would be tall enough for version 2 of Starship. So version 2 of Starship, unless version 2 of Starship is only a meter taller, which has been stated to not be the case in the past, it needs to be taller, but we haven't seen any signs really that it's going to be taller other than the new height of the crane. So we'll have to see what they do. Yeah, you can see a bunch of work is going on all around to prep these towers for stacking. We do have some dates. I should have pulled those up, but I did not. But essentially, some of those dates state that the tower will be done within just a few months. And if that's the case, then I highly doubt SpaceX can build and prep an entire new tower section or even two for to make the tower taller than in that short amount of time. And yeah, but you can see, like, because there's a lot of work that is done in them. Of course, if they wanted to get those done quickly, they could always just not prefabricate them, similar to what they're doing with this. They could just build a very bare bones tower section and then put all of the equipment in there later. That's possible. And if they were going to do that, then they could have time. But I'd say if they don't start working on it within the next week or two, and we don't start seeing some form of construction being done on more tower segments, I'd say it's fairly unlikely that they are actually going to make this one taller, at least at the beginning. So, yeah, lots of work being done. And you can see that some of the sections are a little more bare than others. And that's because a lot of that larger piping work is specifically for the ship quick disconnect, which ends around section 6. So, sections 7, 8, 9, they don't need them. Um, so, some of the sections are a little lighter and don't need as much work. So, assuming the sections they might build are those sections, then maybe they would have time as well, but we'll see. Yeah. They've been doing some work around the mounting points as well. I chat. So let's see which one of these wins. Yeah. So be sure to cast your vote if you prefer metric or imperial, or maybe both. Who knows? Or maybe you just like measuring everything in bananas. Yeah, bananas are superior in my opinion. They should replace metric and imperial. Everybody just measure things with bananas. Oh, oh, oh. Looks like we're losing my. It looks like we're losing my desktop share and camera. We're not really sure what's happening because everything looks good on our end. We're gonna try and get that figured out while y'all are voting on if it's metric or imperial or banana. We should have put that as a third vote. Yeah. All right. I'm gonna. Okay. Yeah. Apparently my camera's working again, so looks like I might need to restart my desktop share. So give me just 1 second to do that. We could cut over to the live cameras right now. In the meantime, okay. So we should be on the live cameras right now. All right. There we go. Hopefully. Also, in the meantime, you can see the live cameras now. We have a 24/7 stream running, well, 24/7, and that will provide views from all around Starbase. We've also got often have people in the chat who can actually control the cameras. For example, the person I have helping me out with this stream on the back end, if he's in the chat, you can always just message um, him, or a lot of our moderators also have that ability. So if you see, uh, if you're wanting a specific view of anything at Starbase, just let us know and we might be able to point the camera over there because, well, we have cameras set up that can basically point anywhere you want. So definitely be sure to check that out sometime. It's also, it was just recently relaunched in 4K. So even if you have already seen it and checked it out, you should definitely go back because it's a much clearer view, much better view, and we have um, even more things there to look at. And of course, there's a lot of testing that's going to be ramping up at Starbase. So if you want to see that, be sure to check those streams out. All right. Okay. Okay. So it looks like my desktop should be working again. So hopefully that's okay. So you should be able to see it now. And so we were just on the tower sections. Now let's take a quick look over at uh, the port of Brownsville because it's kind of hard to tell, but these are actually, you can see over here as well a little bit. And here, this is the chopstick carriage and the chopsticks for Tower 2. We mentioned we've mentioned in the last few episodes that the tower sections have arrived. We hadn't quite managed to get pictures of them just yet, but now we finally have pictures of the two new tower sections. Well, they're not new, they're actually fairly old. These were the last two sections that were over here in Florida, and they have finally been shipped to the port of Brownsville, and they're awaiting a roll hopefully soon. The sooner they roll, the sooner SpaceX can get some work done on those and prep them for stacking, which will be awesome to see. All right. Now, we also have ship 30, which is continuing to get more and more heat shield tiles put back on it. And you can see just how much they've managed to replace. They've already stripped basically every single tile from ship 30, except actually, we still have not seen any work around the hinge area. So we are expecting to see some work unless somehow we missed the work being done. There have been some times where it's been harder to see, or there have been things in the way, and perhaps SpaceX was able to do some work even on the backside, because maybe they determined that the tiles in the hinge area are already good enough because they haven't seemed to have many problems losing tiles around the hinge area. It's been more these common tiles spread across the body. So maybe they've determined that these tiles aren't a problem, and the main problem is actually this hinge gap, because Musk specifically stated that that was a problem. And we'll also probably dive into that a bit more on an upcoming episode, because there's a lot of really interesting information about how Starship is trying to deal with it, as well as how the space shuttle dealt with it back in the day, because the space shuttle also had these problems, um, because it had giant wings as well, and it needed to maneuver still while coming in through the atmosphere. So they had to deal with very similar problems, and they managed to make it work. So we're going to be doing a bit of a deep dive into how the space shuttle managed to make it work and the possible solutions that SpaceX is going to be implementing for the next flight. So if you're interested in that, be sure to subscribe to the channel so you don't miss that video, because it is going to be very interesting and there's a lot of really cool information. Now, whenever you're talking about heat shields, you do need to be a little careful though, because there are some ITAR restrictions. So yeah, you should also watch it the moment it comes out, just in case it accidentally gets taken down. So if you want to catch it, be sure to subscribe to the channel, because you'll learn a whole lot about heat shields. And I'm not joking about that. I've seen many videos where I've caught them the day they came out, and the next day they've disappeared off the internet because the U.S. government was like, "That is a security concern. Please do not post that online." Um, so definitely be sure to check that out. We'll try and avoid anything like that, but just in case, you should definitely check it out the moment it comes out, and the best way to do that is to be subscribed to the channel. And yeah, we did also mention this in the latest video, so if you have not seen it, then I'll give you a quick rundown. Essentially, SpaceX also is not adding any ablative layer or the silicon felt, essentially, under the nose cone tip, which is pretty interesting because they did rip all the tiles off. We had heard some speculation that these weren't actually the V2 tiles. To me, I feel like this um, confirms that these are the V2 tiles, because if these weren't the version 2 tiles that were stronger, then they would have just left them on the nose cone, because they didn't put anything under them, so there wouldn't be any reason for them to replace them. And the reason as well that they didn't add anything under the nose cone tiles is likely because on the other side of those tiles is the cryogenic header tank. So even if a tile broke, essentially the hot gas would be going right up against a cryogenic tank with a lot of cryogenic liquid. And sure, that might cause some extra boil off, which could cause some problems on landing. But SpaceX does have probably a very significant margin. So if they lost a little bit of extra cryogenic liquids, it wouldn't be too big a problem. And it would be much better than losing the vehicle. And SpaceX essentially looked at it and was probably like, we have enough margin to where even if we lost a tile or two, losing on the nose cone shouldn't be a problem, because that header tank will be able to stop any steel from melting, essentially. So that is pretty cool to look at. We've also seen that they haven't actually put, excuse me, they haven't actually put the ablative underlayer on all the pieces. It appears that SpaceX is more focusing on the areas that are going to get the more direct heating. So, for example, these back areas where they've only got like a single tile, they're only really putting the felt underneath, as opposed to the silicone ablative that they're putting on the belly of it. This is likely a weight saving measure, because they don't really need that ablative up here. And even if a tile were to break, the steel should be heat resistant enough to where it shouldn't be a problem, especially with this felt underneath, because the felt as well does give a bit of protection even without the heat shield tile. So that should be enough. And SpaceX is likely thinking that as well. So to save weight, they don't need an ablative there. And you can see here along the flaps that They are having a slight problem keeping some of the ablative on. It's not really a problem because the moment the tiles go on, the tiles are essentially what hold this ablative down because it just goes between because it's basically held on with the pins for a little bit and then the tile goes on over it and the tile is held on by the pins and it basically sandwiches the ablative between the steel and the tile which is held on by the pins and keeps everything stable. So it's not really a problem if this just droops down a little bit, which is why SpaceX hasn't really done anything about it because they don't really care. And of course, you can see one of these workers hard at work applying new tiles. And you can see, like, even further down on the ship, there has been massive work done across the heat shield just to add more and more of the new tiles across the heat shield. So we should see ship 30 almost fully equipped with its heat shield tiles fairly soon. And they've also, looks like, begun work applying some heat shield tiles to the lower flap as well. Uh, they hadn't applied the ablative as of the last time we talked about ship 30. So they have applied the ablative now. They likely put some of these tiles on just to hold the ablative down, essentially. So some of these tiles are likely just there to stick it down. And then they'll be adding more tiles later, and you can see they are still missing some of the ablative in certain parts of the fin. And you can also see here, it looks like they've actually got tiles on all the way down here on the ship already. So the work they've been able to do in such a short amount of time is crazy fast. Here's a bit of a wider shot to see, and you can once again see some drooping on the flap. And yeah, it just kind of goes to show that it's not really a problem. They'll just push it back up and slap a tile on top. The main reason they just have this there is so they make sure the shape is right and everything. And in the meantime, it's not really too big a deal. All right, here we go. Yeah, you can see more work being done. This looks like he's actually cutting up the felt as opposed to applying the tiles in this. So the felt is oftentimes when you do. Oh, okay. I was having some quick connection problems. I should be back now. I think that's because yeah, I think I know what caused that. Sorry, that was on my end, guys. Um, so yeah, yeah, I need to upgrade my internet. Sorry about that. Um, but yeah, the felt basically needs to get cut into the right shape before being applied, and yeah, this is basically what the teams are doing here. And now we are going to move over real quick to Massey's because we have ship 31 there because Sparky is back on the test stand for round 2. So for those who remember, it was about a month ago, just before Flight 4, Ship 31 was out at Massey's and it was ready for some testing and it had started a quick cryogenic test and then one of its pipes decided it did not want to exist anymore, so it just bent and ended up breaking some of the electrical lines as well and starting a bit of an electrical fire, which is why the ship is named Sparky now. Um, so Ship 31 was moved back to the high, or was moved back to the, yeah, it was moved back to the high bay actually, after the incident, and seems like the repairs are finished, and now it's back at Massey's, hopefully for some cryogenic testing and um, just to verify everything's working and it's not gonna decide to start sparking again. Yeah. So right now it's just over on the cryogenic test stand. It does, or not the cryogenic test stand, sorry, the thrust stand. So right now it doesn't have its engines just yet. So to test to make sure the structure of the vessel is good, part of the testing that it does at Massey's is essentially to take a bunch of hydraulic rams and push them up against where the engines are and essentially simulate the thrust of, or simulate where the engines will be, sorry, and essentially simulate the thrust um, of a Raptor engine during flight while the ship is at pressure. And that's essentially the goal of this. They didn't quite get to that last time, so they're doing it now, and hopefully everything works. And you can see here, this was the area that had some problems. Yeah, so one of these pipes ended up breaking, and it ended up going off to the side and causing, or I'm pretty sure it was actually one of these smaller lines in here, but it ended up breaking and causing a small electrical fire. Another thing you can actually see in this picture is right down here, you can see a little thruster. So these are pretty cool. The ship has had problems with thrusters in the past, so getting a good look at them is always fun because that was actually the problem on Flight 3 whenever the ship decided to do a little ballet dance in space. It basically did that because these thrusters that we're looking at now failed and it was not able to control itself and ended up re entering upside down, backwards, and inside out eventually. Um, so having a good look at these thrusters, and you can actually see if you look at previous designs of the thrusters, these are upgraded essentially. They do look a fair bit different, and we need to. We'll probably end up doing a bit of a. We've talked about it in the past, but we'll probably end up talking about it a bit on some of our future episodes. So if you're interested in that, be sure to subscribe, and also don't forget to like the stream so more people can find it. And once again, thank you so much to all the people who have. Uh, thank you. And also, thank you to all of our channel members and to all of our patrons. You make all of this possible for us. So I just want to say thank you so much. And uh, if you can, then and you haven't already, you should definitely look into maybe becoming one as well, because there's also a lot of perks that you get, including, I actually forget to mention this quite often, but you do also get access to our Discord server, and oftentimes me or a lot of the members of our team will actually just be in that Discord server relaxing. So if you want to talk to us on the back end, you can do that, or we'll just be in the chat talking as well. So if you're interested in that, you can also become a channel member or a patron. Yeah. Oh, I need to zoom out a little bit if I need to go to the next one. Yeah. You can see here there's, this is actually a really good picture of the, I'm forgetting the name, the communication disk. I'm forgetting the name, sorry, but essentially the dishes that SpaceX uses to communicate, that the that yeah, so they're basically Starlink dishes on Starship, and you can see here the design. So this is actually a fairly different design from the previous ships, but these are used for, so SpaceX can communicate with the ship while it's in space. This is actually the last ship that will have this specific design. It's hard to tell. You can see clearly the differences in design between some of the previous ships and ship 30 and 31, who have this same comm array. But essentially, we know it does appear that ship 32 also has this specific communication equipment, but it's hard to tell underneath the hood, and we've seen some FCC filings that essentially state that ship 30 and 31 are going to be the last two ships to fly with this comm array. So it's good to get a good look at this, so we can also take a look at ship 32. And if you keep this in mind, then uh, when if you ever see a picture of ship 32's comm array, then it's pretty clear to see that they're very similar, if not identical. Once again, it's hard to see under the surface, so it kind of goes to show that ship 32 might not actually be flying. Of course, SpaceX could just rip off that comm array and replace it with a different one, but ship 32 is also fairly out of date at this point, so SpaceX might just opt to completely scrap the vehicle. Yeah. So here's another shot of the area that sparked last time. And moving on now, we have Can Crusher 2.0. I'm not going to spend too much time on this because there's not too much new information, but we have seen some work done, um, especially around here. We can see I mentioned this on the last space roundup, but we didn't have any good pictures of it that excuse me. But they have started to add excuse me. They've started to add some essentially like hooks that it looks like they're going to be placing. Actually, it's kind of hard to tell, but the the current idea is that they'll be placing like cables to go up the structure to hold on to the top of whatever's in here. And that's I'm kind of leaning towards that theory as well. But as of now, this is also supposed to be getting taller, and we'll see if they end up placing these hook things on all the sections. There are some spots on this next ring for them as well. So at the very least, we know they're going to be placed on this section. We'll have to see if they're placed on the next ring and maybe even the one above that. It's still hard to tell just how tall this Can Crusher 2.0 is going to be, but it a lot of us are thinking it can't be too much taller, but honestly, SpaceX does some weird stuff sometimes. I mean, they just slapped a test booster, so, you know, kind of hard to guess. Yeah. So here is a great picture from our photographer John, and you can tell it kind of looks like there's some these do appear to be bearings or something, so it looks like this is going to have like a rod or something through it that will basically just be easy to move. So it's likely that they're going to be running a fairly heavy duty cable through it and through these essentially like between here and up there. At least that's the theory on my end specifically, and there's a fair bit of evidence to support that, but yeah, we'll have to see what SpaceX ends up doing because once again, whenever it comes to testing, it's it's anyone's guess. Ship 26 we thought was going to get scrapped ages ago, and it is still just relaxing in the rocket garden right next to B14.1, which was just which was just smacked 6 times by giant mechanical arms. So, yeah, whenever it comes to testing, most of the time it's anyone's guess. Oh, and I believe that is actually our last picture from Starbase, but we do still have some more information regarding Starbase because we have a road closure. So I did mention there is a lot of testing that's going to be going on at Starbase. So actually, tonight, which, well, technically it is tomorrow morning, but it's 12 o'clock tonight. That is Central Time, of course, because this is where everything is taking place over in Texas. SpaceX has essentially said they're going to be moving a booster from the production yard to the launch pad. So that is most likely, I'm saying it's like 99.9% that is going to be booster 12 for its static fire because SpaceX needs to start prepping everything for the next flight. So it would make a lot of sense if they rolled Flight 5's booster there so it can, start with its testing campaign or continue with its testing campaign because it has gone through quite a few tests already. So this would make sense if they rolled booster 12 off to the launch pad. Now, some of us are also thinking that they might, for some reason, roll booster 14.1 back. I don't think so personally. Although, once again, it's anyone's guess. Um, they could end up doing that. But it's almost guaranteed, in my opinion, that this is going to be booster 12 for its static fire campaign. Of course, the launch mount does still have a bunch of scaffolding on it, so SpaceX will need to remove that, and we'll keep an eye on that. And you can, of course, check on our 24/7 cameras as well to see if SpaceX is starting to remove that. And if we see them start to remove it, then this will be almost definitely booster 12 because they need to clear that out for the static fire campaign. All right. The next piece of news regarding Starbase is Hurricane Barrel. I'm pretty sure I'm pronouncing that wrong. I'm just going to call it Hurricane Barrel because that sounds right enough to me. This is currently predicted to be roughly a Category 5 hurricane, not whenever it hits Starbase, but it is looking like it is going to hit Starbase. The current projections have it as a Category 5 going almost straight over Jamaica, so this isn't really going to be a fun time for the Caribbean or Mexico because they're getting almost directly hit by a gigantic Category 5 hurricane, so that's not good for them. But for Starbase, at least, the current forecasts have it hitting Starbase at roughly a tropical storm to a Category 1 hurricane. So very similar to Alberto, which was a tropical storm that just recently passed over Starbase. So there shouldn't be much damage to Starbase. Of course, storm surge often does not really care about wind speed or a lot of things. There have been tropical storms that have done much, much more damage than Cat 4, Cat 5 hurricanes if the conditions are right to produce large storm surges. And in the case of Starbase, because it's so low, it's fairly hard to protect against it. But fortunately, in this case, it looks like it's going to be a similar situation to Alberto, where it'll cause a little bit of rain, cause a little bit of wind, but other than that, it's not really going to cause any problems. After all, SpaceX is looking at rolling a booster to the launch pad, so if SpaceX was worried about a Category 5 hurricane hitting them or something, something tells me they wouldn't be rolling. Excuse me. I'm pretty sure it's not using this microphone, but we've had problems in the past, so I'm just going to keep that down. Um, we have had problems. I kind of lost my train of thought there, but I'm pretty sure what I was trying to get to was they wouldn't be rolling a booster out to the launch pad if they thought that it was going to get hit by a Category 5 hurricane. So most likely, SpaceX is also thinking that it's only going to be a very mild wind and rain. And if that turns out not to be the case, of course, we will keep you updated on the situation. So be sure to hit that subscribe button so you're able to keep up with that. All right. Oh. And yeah, so another thing we have is Blue Origin has broken their silence for they've had their once a year break of silence where they just post something. And in this case, they posted that they performed a quick disconnect retract test for New Glenn. And I know my internet's not the best, so I'm just gonna let this play out because it's likely my audio will cut out while it's playing. So let's just watch through this real quick because it's a pretty cool test. Yeah. So yeah, you can see very quick, very interesting. One of the things that I also noted, um, it looks like the New Glenn Pathfinder is missing a fin. So this was pretty interesting to me when I saw this because it makes me wonder, is the quick disconnect designed with New Glenn's fins in mind? Uh, I'm assuming it is. Excuse me. Blue Origin is usually pretty good at, you know, accounting for things like that. It would be very surprising to me if somehow they forgot, oh yeah, our rocket has fins. So I'm assuming that that fin is missing just to make things easier for them, and because this is a test. So you can see that it works. Yay! So Blue Origin has a New Glenn ship quick disconnect now, and yeah, you saw they got a lot of angles of it. So at least they're sharing some information. Hopefully, Blue shares even more information. Other than the fact that they're upset with SpaceX because because they plan on launching so many rockets. Maybe they should share less of that information. Um, but you know, the hopefully they share more information regarding their actual launch business. It- because New Glenn's a pretty cool vehicle, and its first launch is supposed to be coming up fairly soon, and we should be seeing a full New Glenn on the pad within only a few months, um, likely, assuming they're able to stick to their launch schedule. And they just completed their test of the ship quick disconnect, so a lot of their ground equipment should be fairly close to complete. And we've seen the New Glenn first stage, at least one of the production articles. Even if it was a production test article, we've seen those. So we know that Blue Origin is at least capable of producing those. We've seen on Vulcan, we've seen the BE4 fly. So we know the engines work. We know basically most of the individual components for New Glenn are built and out there. So hopefully soon we'll be seeing that launch, and that'll be pretty cool. Now, one of our last news stories for today is that Russia said they're going to be building a space station. Um, Essentially, they said they're going to recycle a module that was intended for the International Space Station as their own space station. And yeah, so when is this new space station supposed to launch? 2028. So a little ways from now. Uh, Given Russia's current track record with space station modules, especially, ones that dock to the ISS, they haven't had the best track record, especially considering the last one they docked to the ISS sent the ISS into a spin, which was not safe to say the least. I'm a little skeptical that it'll be done even by 2028, uh, because the modules that Russia has built for the ISS, at least the more recent ones, haven't turned out to be of the highest standard or quality. So if they do want to meet that 2028 deadline, then they're going to probably need to be doing a lot of checks to make sure that this one is safer than the last one. But yeah, the next one is now some of you who, if you watched the last Space Roundup, might be getting deja vu right now because this is Firefly's Alpha rocket. This was supposed to launch this morning, or well, this morning or last night, depending on which way you want to look at it, because it was fairly late in the night. It got pushed back, so now we have a launch in, actually, I believe that time is wrong. So real quick, I'm going to reload it. Okay. Yeah, so it was about an hour off. Um, so yeah, in about 9 hours, we have another flight of Firefly's Alpha rocket, and you can see. So this is on our website. I'm making sure my camera's not blocking it. Okay, so my camera is off the screen. Yeah. So the you can see here we have some animators and some 3D artists who have made some wonderful 3D models for our website. Uh, and you can basically check this out. We've got a bunch of information on the website, and we're working on improving it every day. So if you want to see that, be sure to check out whataboutit.space. And of course, we have our merch store. So be sure to check that out too. We've got a bunch of really awesome T-shirts and mission patches and all sorts of cool space stuff that you can check out. So if you're curious about that, be sure to check out our website. We do also have one of my favorite features, our multi-stream, where you can click that and it pulls up a bunch of different live streams of Starbase, and you can get all the cool information you want. It's got our live stream as well as a bunch of others all in one place, so you don't have to have multiple tabs open. If there's some big event like a launch, you can go on that and watch 9 different streams of it all from one place, which I love. So, yeah, that should actually wrap it up. This Firefly Alpha's launch, I believe, is the only one. Actually, we can double check because we have it on our website. Oh, okay. So I was wrong, actually. In roughly right around the same time as Firefly's launch, we also have a Falcon 9 Starlink launch. So a whole, and it looks like we might also be streaming that one. So if you're curious in watching that with us, definitely be sure to hit that subscribe button. And yeah, it'll be a fun time. All right. I think that should wrap up all the space news for today. If you haven't already, be sure to, once again, click that like button, hit subscribe so you don't miss out on any of the awesome space content that we cover. And we'll be sure to bring it to you as fast as we find it. And also, if you want to see the latest pictures we get as soon as our team gets them, be sure to become a channel member or a patron, and you'll also get access to our Discord. Once again, we do have our merch store, so if you want to support us, you can support us through there as well. So, yeah, all right. Thanks to everybody who stopped by. I hope you all have an amazing afternoon, evening, night, whatever time it is for you. I hope you have a good time. And that's it from me. All right. Bye, everyone.